Recording in progress. Good. You may recall in 2021 that we made 100 recommendations. So if I could just ask members of special interest groups, whilst we're talking about them, just to think, to have a prompt to revisit some of those 100 recommendations and just have a look, test ourselves. What are we missing? What haven't we done yet? There are probably good reasons for that, because it's a big agenda. But are there things that you would want to prioritize in the next year that are sitting there that we just kind of haven't got round to doing yet? And that we should just be pushing up the agenda a bit. I'd like that to be driven from the SIGs. I don't want to suggest that we do one thing over another thing, but just to kind of carry on presenting all of these options. There's a concept that has emerged out of ecology, but being used in policy arenas, and I do talk about it in that impact study, called response diversity, which is to suggest in policy areas where there are challenges to engage large numbers of people, and that's part of the challenge for the transition towards net zero, 1.4 million people in Essex that we want to engage on all of these things, is to present not one option where people have a choice of either agreeing or disagreeing, but to present multiple responses. So the response diversity is something that comes from commissions, from policy, from business, from practice, where lots of options are presented to people. And we say, as it were, you pick which of these you're interested in. We're just setting out the framework of all of the choices. And then people feel as though they have some agency in choosing the things they're interested in. And you also downgrade a little bit of the discussions where people feel very strongly against something, because that against can be just put to one side and they focus on the positive action. So if we just think in our minds about this response diversity and the range of options offered to people across the whole of Essex, I think that's the strength of starting with 100 plus recommendations. I think it's a strength that the impact study showed that we have made progress on 64 of those. You could break some of those down as well and say not as much as we wanted or more than we expected. But this idea of continued diversity of actions that allows people to jump on the train where they like, or jump on multiple trains, if I put to mix the metaphors a little bit, where they feel that they have agency and can do something about it. I think that plays into the strengths of the Commission to continue to offer lots of options in sometimes very difficult areas of transition and transformation, which is, after all, what we're all about. So as we move into that's the end of my kind of little presentation to think about response diversity when it comes to policy and practice. Could we just bear that in mind a little bit when we're thinking through the action of the SIGs and the progress that we've made? And I don't particularly want us to get into we've done these things but not these things, and to get defensive about what we've not done. These are big agenda, and we have set out the transition to net zero by 2050. So we've got a few years left. Brackets, I think most people are thinking we need to do this by 2040 for the planet, but we've still got time. So there are going to be things that are second, third, fourth order. They're going to follow other things. So there's a progress in those transitions, but just bear in mind what we haven't done yet, and just keep a think on that. And a final point, Louise and SIG leads, is that we've had a request that we shift the order around in future. So rather than always beginning with John, which is very convenient for John and colleagues, that we might just do it in reverse order next time, just to allow the just transitioneers to feel as though they can have first voice. Heather made a point and said, "Oh, could we change it around?" It was a bit late to do it this time, but next time we do that.
I have slightly changed the order, Jules, because I know that Graham will be joining us a little bit late. However, Just Transition is still at the end because we have a video that we want to show, which we couldn't successfully embed in the slides. So for this time, there's a good reason why Just Transition is at the end. Yeah.
Okay. And it's not at the end. It's just the one that comes, in that particular order. So it's not lesser because of that. But we will change it around, Heather, in due course. So thanks very much, everybody. Let's get on with the SIG leads. If you want to bring up your slide packs that were sent out in advance on your machines, you can follow that. Meanwhile, I think, Louise, you'll just bring it up in a share screen, will you? For everybody, and then we'll kind of work through those. If I could just ask normal request, if you could kind of roughly stick to time in terms of so we've got 7 sections here, which is right for the 6.
Okay.
So
Lovely.
do you want to put it on slide presentation mode?
Is it not on slide?
No, not for me anyway.
No. Apologies. Is that better?
No.
Okay, that's very strange. Let's try this way around.
Perhaps it's just kind of hovering around in miscellaneous.
Oh. Can you see that now?
It's still in non-presentation mode. Is that the case for other people as well? I presume it is because it's sharing it.
Sorry, showing in. Hold on a moment. Let me exit and see if I can start again, because it's definitely in slide presentation mode on my screen.
Try that. Try slide presentation there. Yeah. No, it doesn't like it. No.
How strange. Let me see. Yeah.
I mean, it's not the end of the world.
No, let me just
slides can be seen.
One more go. Let's try and see if we can change the display down here.
It does reveal people's cheat notes at the bottom of the slides. So.
Yeah, we don't want that. Definitely don't want that. Right, let's try this.
I jest, everybody.
Jules, remind me how many minutes we have while we're doing this.
We have 7 of these, and we have. I'm just going to check the timing. So we're going on until 11:45. So about 5 minutes each. Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, 5. So sorry, it is tight, but I'm hoping.
Can you see that now?
It's doing the same, I'm afraid.
Still the same, yeah.
Oh, I do apologise.
That's okay.
I don't know what's going on. Sorry, guys. Just a moment. John, could you start and I will catch up with you? Would that be all right?
You could try putting it on reading view at the top left, which won't quite be the full presentation, but it will show more of the slide.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that better?
Oh, good work. Excellent.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, well done.
Great.
Right. Away you go then, John.
Okay.
There we go. Land use and green infrastructure. Yeah.
Obviously, I'm talking to land use and green infrastructure, special interest group, and just a couple of slides today. A kind of monumental day on the 30th of August because the local nature recovery strategy went out to public consultation. It had already been seen by the 15 organisations, the 14 boroughs and districts and cities, and also Natural England. So it's the second LNRS in the country. And by Natural England's description, it's the most comprehensive. It has huge amounts of detail. And we got a lot of feedback from Natural England because it was the first one that they really could get their teeth into. And we've addressed all the things that they wanted to look at. And we addressed all the issues that the supporting authorities were interested in. Interestingly, Southend and Harlow, the heavily urban districts, had comments, and we were able to address those as well. So it's now out for public consultation for 2 months. And like I say, this is a milestone because it's the first time that the kind of diverse Essex nature conservation organisations have coalesced around a single strategy. So it's really, really important. And we have to give our thanks to all of those people who inputted, and particularly the team, Helena Taylor and Tim Simpson, but absolutely the local nature partnership. And Simon might want to say a few words because yesterday we met and discussed it at the first time we kind of got to see it, the public consultation, how the bits and pieces worked. So Simon might come in a second, but if I just go to my second slide, Louise. And this is really another very exciting project, Harold's Park Farm in Nazing. People will know of the Knepp Estate, which is, there's a great film, by the way, out at the moment called Rewilding, about the 3,500 acre estate. and what they've done there, Charlie Burrell and Isabel Tree. And fantastically, they've come to Essex. They've also bought farms in Lincolnshire and I think Norfolk. And so they're kind of getting the message out there to other counties. But this site is really important for them because it overlooks London. And there's a relationship with the global city and this site. This is a sort of shop window for them to talk to the corporate centre, to talk to the banks, to talk to a city, to say, this is the changing nature of the countryside. We need to really do something here. So me and my team have been to the site. I think, Jules, you may have been to the site. I know Simon has. It's a really, really exciting project for us all. And what I suppose I wanted to say was, you know, there are lots of players now coming into the nature land use area, corporates like these with kind of ESG in mind, but also corporates coming in for B&G and developers, and then farmers looking at the environmental land management scheme. So, you know, change is happening as we speak. So very, very interesting times. So I'm going to keep it short there because I think Simon may want to say a few words about the LNRS at the LNP yesterday. I don't know.
Thank you, John. Brilliant. Simon, do you want to fill in a bit on the LNRS?
Yeah, thank you, Jules. How can I refuse? And thanks, John. Yes, it's true. We had a board meeting of the Local Nature Partnership yesterday. And it is an exciting moment that the LNRS is out for consultation. It's been a huge amount of work over 18 months. And as John said, big congratulations to everybody. But we didn't stay long in, we had a sort of moment or two of self-congratulation, but then sort of got on to actually, you know, is it right? Is it good? Could it be improved? And there is broad support amongst the Local Nature Partnership. And remember that on our Local Nature Partnership, we have the Essex Developers Forum represented. We have the Planning Officers Association. We're a broad church of different interest groups. And there is broad support for it. Interestingly, one of the key elements of the local nature recovery strategy is it has to identify areas that are the highest priority for nature recovery. And it's up to us to decide, well, how much of Essex should be in there? And we were a bit worried to begin with that actually some stakeholders, we were thinking particularly farmers and landowners, might object if their land was in these opportunity areas. So far, the response has been, why isn't land in an opportunity area? We want it in. So John mentioned Southend and Harlow. Both of their complaints about the initial draft is that there wasn't enough places in Southend and Harlow which were opportunity areas. And we've also had a little bit of feedback from other stakeholders saying, there's another area I know of that should be an opportunity area. It's not in. So it's interesting that the demand seems to be in there and wanting to be doing more, you know, rather differently to what we were first expecting. But anyway, it's out, it's open for consultation until the end of October or 25th of October. And now our job is to make sure we get as broad a response to that consultation as we possibly can. So anything commissioners and others can do to encourage a response to this would be great. If they go onto the Local Nature Partnership website, it'll all be clear as to how to do it. And then, Jules, if I may very quickly, you said at the beginning, you know, what are the things that we should be really looking at that are going to make a difference? And I just wanted to mention two. One is what's going on in the farm landscape. We had a report yesterday from one of our farm cluster leaders. I can't give you, we haven't got any clear data on this, but it will come eventually. But there is clear evidence that there's been a significant increase in take-up in some of the agri-environment schemes that are available, particularly the Sustainable Farming Incentive. And more and more farmers in Essex, and I'm, you know, probably true around the country, but particularly in Essex is all we really know about, are now starting to leave more spaces for nature, which is a good thing on their farms, but also starting to embrace more sort of regenerative type farming systems. So that you know, that should have a significant impact on our agenda, in terms of biodiversity, but also getting to net zero through some of the sort of increases in you know, things like direct drilling, other types of regenerative farming that are happening. So I think we should keep an eye on that, because I think that's where there's going to be a huge change. And that, I think, it will depend on budgets and who knows what the new government's going to do. But but I think we're going to continue to see significant progress in that area, and I think we should keep an eye on it. And the other thing I just wanted to quickly mention is biodiversity net gain is again another sort of tool that now exists, that anybody who wants planning permission for new development has to come up with in order to get planning permission, has to come up with a plan as to how they're going to enhance biodiversity by at least 10%. And we've been pushing planning authorities to try and go for more than 10%, because 10% is great, but it's not that much. And Attlesford has now got 20% in their latest draft local plan, which has gone out for its final stage of consultation. And a number of other local planning authorities are actively considering going for higher than the statutory minimum. And again, that might be worth keeping an eye on, because that's another very useful tool that's going to help drive the nature improvement that we hope to see, and will help meet our climate agenda as well as the biodiversity one. Thank you. Brilliant.
Thanks very much for pointing to those. That's fantastic. 3 cheers to Attlesford, because that is taking the lead within the county. John or Simon, just point toward, just tell us who, you said this is the second in the country. Who's first? Go on.
John, do you want to say isn't it the West of England? But it's not, for reasons I'm not quite clear about.
The West of England Combined Authority,
and it's not as good as ours, isn't that right?
I think there was a lot of comment on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I think the reason I say that is, well, I'm being a bit competitive, but the point is that getting stuff done well in this county can provide leadership across the country, because others will be looking towards the kinds of things that are happening here. So that's great. Graham, a question or an observation?
Thank you, Jules. Yeah, wonderful. All sounds really good. I take the opportunity just to give you a quick update, because it links to both those things. Around the catchment focus area, the CFA that we set up a couple of years ago, that is now being adopted as by DEFRA. This is work I've been banging away at for the last year, and I have updated John's team, but I haven't updated John personally. But DEFRA has now adopted that as one of their source to sea pilot catchment areas. So we've got a workshop at the university next week, actually, with about 40 people coming to do a source to sea integrated appraisal, and we're looking at natural capital of both the land, the rivers and the estuary, and applying some new natural capital tools that the Environment Agency is developing to assess both the current state of natural capital, and then also what will happen if and when we can do the landscape and seascape enhancements that we're talking about, and the sort of things that the nature recovery strategy would contribute to. So we've got a data hackathon. It's in the STEM building, Jules, using all our new toys, if you remember, to try and actually model and think about the catchments going forward. So we're part of the DEFRA Marine Natural Capital Ecosystem Assessment now. So that's really good. It's another flag for Essex. It's just what you were saying, Jules. If we can do this well in a really heavily farmed and developed part of the country. So I'm really excited. It's been a lot of work to get this all lined up, but we're developing some really excellent mapping tools. There's a EA natural capital tool, and the Environment Agency have a new mantra now. It's called the democratization of the natural capital approach, which I think is a rather marvelous strapline. But they're trying to make the natural capital approach accessible to any user groups. They're building web-based tools that councils or boroughs or districts could actually put in data themselves, and then it'll spit out magic numbers at the other end. And we're trialing all these things in the CFA. The farm clusters are coming next week. Various people, all the conservation bodies, everyone you can sort of imagine, part of John's team are coming as well. So an update to say that on that whole CFA side of things, it's been a really useful tool, and it will build into this, both showing what we can do in Essex, but I think also as part of a national scheme, help to think about how to do this more widely across the country. So I can provide more information later when this all comes together. County Council's giving us a bit of money towards this wider project, but we've had money from DEFRA, EA and various other people too. So
wonderful. Thanks very much. Fantastic. Really interesting. I mean, steps forward. There's a really interesting project in Japan called Forest is Lover of the Sea, which is actually about forest regeneration deliberately to improve the quality of water for oyster fishers. which of course is this source to the sea point, is that if you create the watershed that works at the bottom end, it works for the fishers as well. And it's now something that's happening right across Japan. So similar kind of idea, really. So
yeah, that's right. One of the things that EA is keen to do is to think about, if farmers at the top end of a catchment do good things that benefit the estuary, are there, you know, agri-sustainable schemes and things that will actually allow for that? Because at the moment it's all what happens on your land, but there is this disconnect. It's not really a disconnect. Reward good work at the top of a catchment that benefits the estuary at the bottom. So that's the sort of things they're thinking about, which is, you know, obviously challenging, but that's what we've got to think. We've got to think about catchments and seascapes, not individual farms, you know.
Exactly. Very good. Thanks very much. Let's come back to more on that in future. I think we, especially Simon, once we've kind of had the finalization of the strategy and then the launch, then I think we could probably do with just taking a bit more time for a little bit more of a deeper dive onto this later on. But let's move on to energy and waste now. Thank you, John. Thanks, Simon. We can come back. There's time for further comments later on, so we can visit some of those. But let's press on energy then. So good. Thank you for that. Marvelous.
Thanks, Jules. Good morning, everybody. On energy, the community energy programme continues to go from strength to strength. So community energy is working with local communities on what we call powering up or powering down projects. So powering up, building new local renewable generation, and powering down, helping communities use less power, be more energy efficient in their homes. We've led a new contract with Community Energy South, called the Pathways Programme, which extends our nationally recognised and award-winning programme to support communities across Essex. We now have a really strong presence in 8 of 12 districts. Our target, one of our Climate Commission recommendations, was to have at least one group in all 12 districts by 2035. In fact, we have a presence in 8 districts already. We're well ahead on that, with work going on with over 20 community energy groups already, which is from a base position of nil a few years ago. So it's really starting to flourish. We've supplemented that with some work that we're piloting with a great collaboration to develop what we call community-led energy planning, which is really about trying to reduce the barriers to entry for community energy for communities, and bringing residents together to have a conversation about what local opportunities local energy affords, and enabling them to have a really active stake in a fair transition. And we're piloting that in 3 locations, just still to be finally confirmed, but Topsfield, Great Dunmow and East Hanningfield. We've also had a successful bid into the government's Community Energy Fund to work on developing an umbrella group, or umbrella organisation, I should say, community energy services company, to provide support to that growing network with greater capability and capacity, and put them in a better position to be more sustainable and build bigger, more ambitious projects. And we have commissioned external support to start work on our local area energy plan. This is something that many local authorities are engaging with now. Has, perhaps some similarities to the local nature partnership, bringing partners together in Essex and thinking about what the energy transition needs to look like across the county in terms of both heat, power and transport. Next slide, please. I'm really delighted to say that one of the community initiatives was the creation of an energy hub in Jaywick. I'm just talking to the residents there. This was one of the things they said they wanted more than anything, was advice and support. How to pay their bills, how to read their bills, what things they could do in their own home to make their homes more energy efficient. And the hub launched last week, so huge credit to Louise, who really led the charge on that. They got some great coverage with regional news on ITV. We'll be watching development of that service very closely, and there's already been some interest in it from other local authorities. We continue to deliver the government's energy retrofit programme, the Home Upgrade Grant. There have been a range of delivery challenges with that, not unique to Essex, that's across the whole of the country. So we're engaging closely with government on the development of its new scheme, due to launch from March next year, Local Authority Retrofit Scheme. But this is a really key grant programme that provides energy efficiency measures into low-income households. And in a similar vein, you recall at my last update, we were just about to launch a county-wide scheme, the Energy Company Obligation Scheme, which is a scheme funded by the energy companies themselves and administered through Ofgem, Really delighted to say that is now up and running, and we're starting to see a steady flow of referrals into the scheme, and we're working hard to promote that and raise more awareness of that, because again, it's reaching on some of our most vulnerable households who otherwise will be struggling with energy efficiency measures in their home. We've also had a successful bid into the Ofgem Strategic Innovation Fund. We were successful in 2 earlier rounds of this, which enabled us to bid for what's called the beta phase, which is the larger pot of money. Really delighted that we've secured a £10 million project through the Innovate scheme, and that will be working with UK Power Networks, the network operator in Essex, partners in the social housing sector, and social enterprises who bring specialist knowledge of the energy system to deliver affordable, low carbon heat and power into vulnerable households. So it's a really exciting project that has a technology focus, but it's also looking at behaviour change in households, using established technologies such as solar and storage, but also innovative solutions providing affordable heat by using the waste heat that comes off of data centres. But these are distributed data centres, so these will be small units in individual homes. So it's a really exciting piece of work that will be running over the next few years. Next slide, please. And then just lastly, I wanted to touch very briefly on the new government's agenda. There has been a huge change with the new government, which is really encouraging for us. They have already made a commitment to a clean power system by 2030. So that brings forward the previous government's commitment to have a clean power system by 2035. And it's an extraordinary ambition, but it has been backed up by announcements, including commitments with the creation of Great British Energy, which has been set up to crowd in private sector investment into renewable energy generation. And in addition to that, the National Wealth Fund has also has backing of 7.3 billion to promote the development of renewable energy nationally. Essex is really well placed to benefit from this, as was recognised in the recent government contract for differences auction, where contracts were awarded to 2 large offshore wind farms just off the coast of Essex. But really, really encouragingly, as well as recognising the vital role that large-scale renewable generation will play, the government has really made a commitment to what is called the Local Power Plan. And this is going to see a huge scaling up of municipally owned, community-owned local energy. The government has set a target of 8 gigawatts of generation. And just to put that into context, if you were to look at overall generation capacity in the country today, that's about 10%. And that is huge. Sizewell C, when that comes online, will generate about 3.2 gigawatts of power. So the government has said that they expect over 1,000 local energy projects to be built in the east of England. So some of the work that I was mentioning just very briefly earlier around community energy is thinking about how we prepare to benefit from that in Essex, and getting our communities in as good a position as they can be to be able to build and deliver those projects in Essex. I can't stress enough how much of a kind of a sea change that is in the support for local community energy. And in addition to that, Ofgem government has made commitments to what they call Rewire Britain. And behind that, Ofgem are currently consulting on a new approach to planning investment in the network. Now, this is, as well as the transmission network, this is principally the local distribution network. And for the first time, creating a role for local government in what they've called the creation of a regional energy system plan. And so that will bring Essex County Council into a more formal role with other local authority partners in the eastern region, in having a very active voice in the development of investment plans for the energy system across the county, again, cutting across heat, power and transport. And I think that is very important, because that will give us a voice in representing local priorities, local needs, the emphasis that we place in Essex on the role of communities, and also supporting a just and fair transition. Ofgem have a duty to support vulnerable households, and so we'll be putting a lot of emphasis on ensuring that those plans recognise that no one should be left behind. So some really encouraging developments from government. And then just lastly, Although we're waiting for further details, the government has made a commitment to the Warm Homes Plan, which is a doubling of funding over the next Parliament for energy efficiency measures in low-income households to continue to support the retrofit programme. So lots of opportunity coming with the new government. Thank you.
Very interesting. Thanks, Tom. I think that's really helpful to have that summary of how that changed national set of priorities is going to influence us locally, and some super ambitious stuff. And for us to have 20 community energy groups already in the county sets the scene for being able to make fast movement. I hope we're telling government, as central government, that this is the kind of thing that we've done already, because I think that we need to make sure that we're feeding back through formal routes that might exist, so that they're aware of these kind of innovations that are already in place to fit these big ideas that are coming down. But again, I think we want to hear much more about how these things are going to be shaping out. The local power plans, GBE, Warm Homes Plan, Rewiring Britain, all of that. Brilliant. Good stuff. Thanks for the summary.
Good.
Great. Let's press on to waste then. So I'm making a pickle of the timing for this, but we can eat into a bit of the discussion time. So those people who are lined up to give the specific talks in a bit, don't worry. We are going to come to you, but we're just going to work through them.
Thanks, Jules. Thanks, Jules. If I just pick up on the waste agenda, if you just click forward a slide, please. The work of the Essex councils to coalesce behind a single strategic vision for waste is gathering pace. As we discussed before, we've been working on a 30-year shared strategic vision plus action planning programme for waste management across Essex. I'm pleased that as of, fingers crossed, as of close of today, we will have over half of the authorities now signed up to that, with the remainder looking to adopt the waste strategy for Essex in the coming few weeks. And just on the screen there, you'll see the key actions and targets that we've got within that strategy. I think what we're really seeing here for the first time is all authorities actually, as I say, coming together and looking to work in a collaborative and joint way to deliver the aspirations of this shared approach. If we can just click forward, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things on here. The first of these is the changes to services. So what we're seeing now is all of the councils mobilising to ensure equal access to recycling services across the county. So regardless of where you live or the type of property you may live in, you will be able to access services for recycling of core materials, highlighted on the screen. By 2026, that will be the vast majority of the materials that sit within the in the waste bin. And then in 2027, adding on some of those difficult materials such as plastic film, and that will be a real game changer in terms of being able to ensure that we've got every household in Essex being able to access those services. We've also got running alongside that commitments to provide similar services or access to similar services for businesses in Essex as well. So again, we're having that real shift. In terms of the strategy is very much, as we said before, focused around reducing waste and maximising recycling. We do recognise, however, there will still be some waste left, and we made a commitment to stop using landfill by 2030. We're now actually accelerating that. We have agreed a energy from waste route for the reducing amount of residual waste that we will have within Essex, which will start next year. So by the end of 2025, we should be in a position where we will stop using landfill. So we're bringing that forward by 5 years. And the mapping in terms of carbon impacts on that is estimating a 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions as a result of the switch from landfill into energy for waste for our residual waste streams. So again, I think a really positive move forward there. We can just click forward, and I just wanted to just touch on a couple of other sort of project highlights that are running alongside this. The food waste, which we've spoken about a few times, but again, I just wanted to highlight this because we're seeing some really significant increases in the recycling of food waste as a result of interventions that we've rolled out over the last couple of years. We're now in the final stage of this programme, rolling out further interventions to a further 130,000 households across Essex, in partnership with district and boroughs across the county, and we're seeing actually varying across the county, but between 20 and 30% increase in the amount of food waste that's being captured in those targeted areas. So stopping that waste going into landfill or into disposal routes and pushing it into anaerobic digestion. So maximising both recovery of that material and generation of electricity through capture of biogas. And again, that switch from landfill into AD, savings of circa 90% in CO2 emissions from treatment of that waste. So again, some real strong benefits. Also, and again, a really important part of the strategy delivery is around how do we carry residents on this journey with us. So we have now embedded for a period of 18 months some behavioural change expertise within the partnership to really unpick what are the blockages in terms of getting our residents and our communities to change behaviours, and then looking to use that learning to develop and change our approaches in terms of service delivery. So again, making sure we get those services to properly match the expectations and the requirements that we have of our residents. So again, some nice projects there that sort of link together into the delivery of the strategy. Again, if we just click forward a slide, similarly, I just wanted to touch on some of the announcements that have come through from the new government. Some of these are a continuation of what we were seeing under the previous government, but again, it's nice to see that DEFRA have restated a commitment to zero waste economy, and delivery of a circular economy is one of the 5 core priorities for DEFRA under the current government. So again, we're expecting to see a whole raft of announcements coming off of that strong commitment to driving waste out of the system, but also looking at how that links into growing the economy. So again, we're seeing this real link between an investment in a green economy and delivery of a circular economy. We're also, and this touches on not just waste, but right across the environment agenda, we've seen the announcement of a rapid review of the environmental improvement plan. So again, I think this is a recognition by the incoming government that more needs to be done and needs to be done quicker. So that environmental improvement plan is undergoing a review. We're expecting the outcome of that review by the end of the calendar year. So again, we will wait to see what the announcements are coming from that, and be able to respond to that. And equally, in terms of some of the big legislative shifts within waste, so deposit return schemes, there's been a further announcements on a commitment to deliver that deposit return scheme by the end of 2027. So again, we will see deposits on drinks containers across the UK, which will hopefully both change the behaviours of manufacturers in terms of the types of materials they're using for drinks containers, but also maximise the capture of that material into closed loop recycling. And also on the packaging side of things, we've seen further announcements coming through around ensuring that manufacturers take on that responsibility for minimising their use of packaging by putting in place a financial mechanism where manufacturers will be responsible for dealing with packaging at the end of life. So again, we will start seeing that gathering more and more momentum as that gets rolled out over the next 12 months. Sorry, a little bit of a whistle-stop tour, but that's everything for me. Cheers, Jules.
Brilliant. Thanks again, Jason. You can see a common theme, I think, in these final ones of the government announcements, the changes in policy, the contributions to the kinds of things that we've been talking about here. So really helpful to have those summaries. Thank you, Jason. Brilliant. I had built environment next. So transport. It's obviously slipped in there. So transport.
Thanks, Jules. Morning, everyone. I'm standing in for Tracy Vickers today. I'm Helena Capabio. I only have one slide, but I do have some notes. So Route 9 in Harlow. So this is the in fact, the only route that we won construction funding for through Active Travel England and Department for Transport. But the good news is that we are ahead of timeline on this one and also under budget. Local cycling, walking and infrastructure plans, or LCWIPs for short, what they are focusing on all locations with over 50,000 people. And the plan for us is to work on 2 or 3 of these locations per quarter. But actually, more realistically, that's more of a half-yearly program, because actually they just take so long to get through, to work through. So that is a slight change on our original pipeline. But we do have a pipeline of activity, and all of the locations that we have identified will be out to consultation by the end of the year. And conversations will soon be underway internally to discuss the governance for adoption of the routes and how that will pan out in the future. Essex Pedal Power is now active in 6 locations across the county. That's Clacton, Dovercourt, Colchester, Basildon, Harlow, and soon to be Canvey Island. The schemes are going really strong and are having a very positive impact. Some headline sort of stats that I can share with you across the schemes is I've created 30 new jobs, enabled 11 bike recipients to secure new employment, and supported over 100 people with getting to and from work. Similarly to others on the call today, there has been some activity from the new government and what their focus and plans are for active and sustainable transport. There has been some information documented and making positive noises about active travel and the importance of active travel, although no commitment to funding or anything like that yet, but it's certainly a start. And on Monday, we saw the launch of the Shadow Great British Railways. Essentially what that will do is bring together one body who will be responsible for overseeing the both rail services and infrastructure. And the idea behind that is that it will be much better for the end user and possibly, hopefully, maybe cheaper and more reliable. Our local transport plan 4 is currently out to consultation and closes on the 22nd of September. I'd encourage everybody to complete that if they can. For those that don't know, our local transport plan is our highest level strategic document for transport. We have to have one. I believe that we have to have one by DFT, but without it, we wouldn't be able to get funding for anything. So it's a really, really important and crucial document for us. And we are really bringing active and sustainable transport into the mix much more heavily within this new document. And it also aligns with our Essex strategy, Everyone's Essex, and also Department for Transport guidance as well. A nice fun one to finish. So our community rail team, they run a series of events like this Seaside Special throughout the year, and they entertain people on the train with fun and games to make that journey a lot more engaging than it would be normally. And it's a great opportunity because it brings families together, including grandparents, so that wider family network as well, and encourages those that would normally drive to take the train. And the team run about 15 different event trains over the year, and these include Climate Train, Santa Train, Dementia Train, and the next one in the diary, which I believe is in a month's time on the 12th of October, is the Sea Shanty Train. And finally, from me, legislation was laid before Parliament, again, Monday just gone, which gives all transport authorities across England new powers to run their own bus services, which has previously been limited to mayoral combined authorities. It's called the Buses Bill and is good news, is actually very positive news, and will hopefully enable our passenger transport teams to have more control and be able to provide better and reliable services as well across the county.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Helen. Fantastic. Good summary. Ian, you've got your hand up, so I think it's something from from tendering, I imagine.
Jules, how could you have possibly guessed that? Yes, it is. And I just want to say is that Helen's right in terms of, sort of some of the stats, but actually the 1,000 bikes which have gone out, we can map just how many more people are using those for work. They're using them for countering social isolation. We are seeing them. The amount of use is quite stunning. But the other interesting thing is actually the group have got a get together. So they've had the group to get together on the front. They've had some publicity done as well about that. But it's really interesting because they've got sort of some kind of allegiance to it as well. So it's created activity, but it's created some allegiance to that. And I will say this, that I think some of it is what I call, and what I think we need, is accidental activity. There as well, because people have done it because they've joined up rather than think, I need to get fit, I need to go and use a bike and go and pedal for different reasons. And instead of said, some people have used it for jobs. And that ties in rather interestingly about the transport, because with the loss of some of the bus routes, the bikes actually became the source of being able to get to work and people becoming economically active, which they actually couldn't have done otherwise. So there's a whole kind of layer of improvements, etc. there, which I just really kind of want to highlight. Not sure we've kind of able to fully capture that all, but some of it's anecdotal and some of it is quantitative. But it certainly has had a massive effect. While I've got the kind of the microphone, Jules, if I may, the other thing that just kind of slightly off to the transport part I think is important is, across Essex, we've got a number of new developments which are in train. So we've got the garden communities, we've got other ones at Harlow, Chelmsford, etc., etc. And I just sort of put it out there is that with new communities, with them developing, with them having funding for community-based work from the developers and from the landowners who was passing it over. There's various different people in there, R1 for example. It may be an opportunity to actually make sure, A, that we have thought through what sustainable transport looks like there, and B, get a contribution to it. Because there is quite significant funding around some of the community-based funding at a local level. I don't mean national level, at a local level, and then perhaps that's how do we think about maximising some of that? And certainly happy to give some more thought to that around the Tendering Colchester board as one, but obviously that's only one. There are a number of others across Essex. So I think we're at a kind of potentially a point in time which could be very valuable. And to that end, the government are setting some significant new housing targets for the country, 1.5 million houses, and for an individual authorities. So that may increase those opportunities, which perhaps we need to think about now and be proactive and kind of have it ready on the shelf, as opposed to perhaps reactive kind of, here comes another development of 500 houses or whatever. So I think that Helen really captured it very well, and I want to absolutely say that how amazing the impact have been, but also perhaps the next opportunities. And one very quick other thing, sorry, to hold up the microphone, one very quick other thing is, I honestly didn't think it would have the level of impact that the bikes would have. I knew it would be good, I knew it was kind of the right thing, all those sorts of things. But when you start looking at the families and the people who got to work and having exercise they didn't, etc., etc., I really think that's been and more amazing than I thought it was going to be, which is really bad English.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Thank you for that. I like that testimony. That's really important for us to just remember what kind of impact. It's a simple technology. It's one that we know that works. Bicycles. But that's really good. Helen, I'm going to just move on, I'm afraid, because we're now on to the next part of the meeting. But have we missed built environment, Louise? Because we're onto community there. Did we jump through the built environment, which was in the pack that was sent round to everybody? We can do community now, but perhaps you just check on that. Rich, Pradwell, Jane and Marina, sorry, we're just going to carry on doing this for a bit. Apologies. Hope you don't have to leave too soon, but could we, as presenters, I know it's a bit unfair, but could we be a bit swifter for these remaining ones? I think the community engagement one, just have summaries rather than reading all the material on the slides. And away we go. Community
Lovely.
engagement.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jules. Morning, everybody. As per usual, we've had a busy time over the summer getting out and about at various different events. I'm not going to run through them. You can see them all on the screen there. The picture at the top right is the launch of the Energy Hub in Jaywick, which was at the tail end of last month. A great event and wonderful to have that facility in the community. We've got a busy autumn ahead as well. Lots of events ranging from business events, schools events. We'll be attending the Essex Association of Local Councils, etc. So we'll be out and about a lot over the autumn too. Next slide, please. And as usual, Councillor Peter Schweer, our climate czar, has been out visiting a number of local businesses and organisations. So he has been to visit the factory at Tiptree. You can see him there, bottom left, with rows of strawberries growing behind him. And he's also been out and about at schools events and viewing some local community initiatives like the Whittam Tree Group. We're also organising some visits for him coming up over the autumn in Tendring and a couple of businesses, Biogen and Wade in Halstead. Next slide, please. So there's lots of projects been going on. So we've seen the Energy Hub. We've also developed an identity for the East of England Regional Climate Change Forum. You can see on the right-hand side. And we have developed an identity for the Essex Schools Climate Action Network, ESCAN, which you can see there to the left. Next slide, please. We've also been in the news. So we've been on the BBC. Peter has been talking to ITV, talking about the Harold's Park Farm that John was talking about earlier. And there was coverage on ITV of the launch of the Energy Hub. Next slide, please. Carbon cutting Essex is going from strength to strength. We've got just under 1,200 people registered on there, and those people registered have made over 4,000 pledges in the app. And we are currently talking to Southend and Thurrock about the possibility of opening the app up to them. Currently, it just covers the area of the administrative area of Essex County Council. So we're hopeful that they will want to come on board. Next slide, please. And carbon literacy training, just on this Monday, we have the second annual awards ceremony. You can see a picture of the first one there. Numbers are increasing, so we've got over 400 people who've now been accredited with the training, and we are currently looking at developing a train the trainer program this autumn so that we can train up our own staff to deliver the training once the contract with the training provider ends at the end of this year. And then there was a few of us who attended a water literacy training pilot. So we're hoping to bring that in once the full programme is rolled out. Next slide, please. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thanks, Kerry. I like the idea of the water literacy one. It's a question I quite often use in talks. Where does your drinking water come from? Just to kind of explore that long transition, particularly in this part of the country, but to get people thinking about water. We'll look forward to hearing more about that in due course.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for doing that swiftly. That was great. Built environment, back a couple of steps. If we could be swift on this one as well. Thank you.
So I could summarise it up in a few bullet points, if you like, Jules. So
Brilliant.
The team are making excellent progress. Just to remind us, we've landed net zero new schools back in 2022, and we're really leaning into the net zero new homes for the 2025 target. So the team are now being recognised for the scale of the work that they're doing, and you've got a few references here. The guidance is continuing, so the evidence base, the support needed to support the developers and the Essex Net Zero specification guidance is now out on the Essex Design Guide website. So that really is becoming a proper hub. And I've just referenced on the bottom there that we've got the next summit, which is really going to be looking at a lot of the work. So next slide, please. So again, to remind ourselves, we've got 30,000 new homes aligned to this. So it goes back to Ian's point in a way. One of these is a couple of garden communities are lined up to this. And just to give Ian a bit of reassurance in terms of how those strategic sites are being looked at, we are certainly going to be capturing the quality that's needed in terms of sustainable transport, where you place schools, etc., etc. So there's a lot of that work, Ian, underway and will continue on some of the sort of, if you like, the Chelmsford Garden Community, which is a couple of steps ahead of the tender in Colchester, but that's going. We're now part and parcel of government's design council's homes task force. So I've been offered a place to speak at the work that we are doing from an Essex perspective, which is great. And actually, we've been now invited to all of the top tables, you know, whether it's Homes England, whether it's government, whether it's Design Council. There's a recognition that the work that we're doing in terms of the built environment and net zero is really ticking that national box. So we've really upped our game. Next slide, please. So, and this really gives you a sense of where we're now engaged in terms of all of those different sort of platforms. So as I say, all I can say is we are really, really leaning into this. And from a sort of a national perspective, the work that we're doing on the built environment is securing an awful lot of prestige now. So yeah, I think we've been in the fast lane for a while, and now we're sort of very much approaching the front of the queue. So we'll soon be on the top podium with everybody else. So I'll stop there, and that was the fastest whistle stop through.
Brilliant, thank you, Graham. It's really interesting. This is the one of the areas I get asked a lot of questions about housing policy. You can see why. I mean, it's a national priority as well, and people are really interested within the county, but also elsewhere, in the kinds of innovations that are being pressed ahead, and often very surprised at how quickly it's happening, because it seemed to a lot of people to be something that might be quite distant. So I really like the fact that you're reporting on the prestige from all of that, and we look forward to hearing more. Ian was putting his thumbs up as well.
And yeah. If I could just add, a number of people have talked about the new government and how that's supportive, and I would also argue that. So we've seen a very sort of clear way of being plan-led, strategic thinking, doing away of some of the things that probably weren't helpful in previous iterations. So the direction of travel, I appreciate there's a sort of a challenge in terms of scale of growth, but actually recognizing that climate, health, plan-led, supporting the sector, the narrative, a lot of these things are very, very positive. So I think we see more good in what's coming down the track.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Brilliant. Thanks, Graham. I really appreciate that. Right, last one then, just transition. Who've had to wait the longest?
Well, that's all right. It's not a problem. So normally you'd have Loretta Hoy, but Loretta's off, so you got myself, Matt Miller. So just start off with the Green Entrepreneur. So we ran this last year. It's all about supporting new green businesses or businesses transitioning into becoming more green. So we are running that again, which is terrific because it was a successful one. I've got a couple of slides later just with a couple of the winners we had from last year. But a bit of a typo on there. It's actually that deadline for the first sprint is going on the 18th of September. But we've changed it. It runs over a longer period. So we've actually got individual sprints. We've got seed funding, winners or capability for them to win. 5,000 for each of the winners of each sprint, and then 2 lots of £2,500 for the runners up on each of those. As I say, it's a program to support new businesses, green businesses. Last year it was only an 18 to 30 capability, so we ran it a bit tighter, but there's no age limit, just that businesses haven't been running for more than 2 years because we didn't want to lose that seed funding being sort of mopped up with somebody just grabbing a lot of that money. So yeah, really excited on that. It's a great program. We've had a couple of winners from last year who I've got a couple of slides just to talk about, but very much supporting new businesses. It's all online. Anyone within the county can get involved as long as they've got an idea. And it was pretty successful. If we could go to the next slide, that'd be great. Thank you. This was one of them. So Curo Home Improvement. So actually, what they came in, their idea was sustainable loft insulation. And actually, you can see on here that grant funding, they've called it grant, but actually it's a seed funding, vital in their business plan, help them invest in their marketing strategy, and they got equipment. So they've used it on ad search and actually physical tools and safety equipment, and allowed them to generate more leads. So really helping them. They're a business that's now going strength to strength. They've also got a snagging part of the business. We're also quite linked in with them. So we're not just leaving them be after they've won. And a lot of the businesses that came off this took a huge amount of advantage of the network capability of ECC. So, you know, we had a meeting with them about 2-3 weeks ago. They're looking at some really good social value elements that could help in terms of insulation and actually paying back based on what their new business plan is. So yeah, really good, you know, in terms of being able to help and support. If we could go to the next slide, that'd be great. And this is Elias. So it's Essex Chestnuts Alliance, and it's sort of two-way thing really here. So it's chestnut farming and sustainably chestnut farming, and looking at all the products that would come off that. So there's biofuels, there's food elements, and a whole raft there. But also secondary idea, which was to impact runoff from farming into rivers, and that chestnuts have got a great capability of mopping up a lot of the sort of the runoff that would come off from fertilizers and such like. So actually, we linked Elias up with universities, and he's sort of trying to maneuver that piece while also now he's growing. But it enabled him to get going. He still needs more sort of support as time goes on, but brilliant, you know, that we could help him. And actually, it's a business that started over a year ago, and he's now continuing on. We're still continuing to sort of support where we can. And as you can see on there, you know, very happy in terms of what he was able to get from the program. So if I could go to the next slide, that'd be great. Great Start. Great Start is our scheme to help businesses on their sustainability journey. So what we've got is we've got a Essex YouTube channel. We've put up some podcast style videos that we've created for this as the first sort of wave of the Great Start. But it's ultimately a business could go out there and they could pay a consultant to provide them with a carbon footprint calculation and help them with a sustainability plan and maybe a carbon reduction plan. There's a lot of capability for them to do that themselves, and we're wanting it to be self-serve and for them to understand enough from these videos and these podcasts where we talk about all the elements that they could do, but also supporting them in being able to do that, but also at the same time growing with them. And the stats say that 60% of SME sort of sized businesses, of which there's a lot in Essex, haven't done anything in relation to sustainability. 40% have, and actually potentially a lot of those haven't done much with it. So some of them will be able to get a huge amount of benefit from it, either keep them in their supply chains, or their supply chains are going to be asking them for their green credentials and what are they doing, because it's going to impact them as part of their scope 3. They'll be looking at that. So that's what we've done. It's a growing element, and as you can see on there, we've had 1,800 clicks, so it's actually over 2,000 views now of all the videos that we've got on there. More videos going up regularly, and over the next 6 months, we're going to be really honing in on the areas we think we can add the most value. And it's not just sustainability, but there's social value in there, and in terms of waste will be one of the elements that we look at. There's a huge amount of capability that we can help and support. So we will be building more content to go out there. And also, just to mention there, the Ambitious Essex Business Summit. So we've got a whole amount there that we're just talking about at every event that we can. But it's a really interesting thing. The videos have got myself and a sustainability consultant on there, so been a bit of fun there. And actually, we feel it's a real easy method for businesses to be able to get to that. Now, just I don't know what you think. I've got a 3-minute video.
No, well,
do you want me to? We'll add a link in and we'll share that, Jules.
I think we may do that. Sorry, Louise, but it's 10 past now, and
I agree. It's not a problem. It's not a problem.
Let's do that. But let's see where, if we've got 3 minutes at the end, we could come back to that. But I'm keen now to respect those who are queued up to do the second half of the meeting. We're now 15 minutes on. So, I mean, that was great. Lovely. Thank you, Matt, for that.
No problem.
But if you don't mind, we'll just hold that. And Louise, if we don't have time, we'll provide a link to everybody to have a look at outside the meeting. We'll transition to the other part. Ian's got your hand. Ian, you took the mic and carried on a bit last time. So is it a really short intro?
I'll make it really short this time, indeed. Just very quickly, in the same spirit as Graham was talking about, as well as new housing, we've also got a lot of new land allocation for businesses. So I just think for Matt, give some thoughts to those businesses that don't yet exist, but how do we actually get the literature to the councils and to the authorities, which will be stimulating the new businesses coming, so that they can actually join when they start, rather than be established.
Lovely. Thanks very much indeed. Really good point. Linking back again. Okay, great. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. Really good summaries, and appreciate the preparation of the PowerPoints in advance as well with all of that. Okay, let's take a breath, and we will move to the second half, which is about young people. So we're going to start with Rich Yates from Essex Wildlife Trust shortly. But just to say, there's something I quite often say to young people when giving talks to them, which is to say, don't believe this when people say it's your job to save the planet, which is a real kind of common, kind of rather lazy approach to saying, we might have messed it up, but you lot are going to save us all later on. It's the great burden on people when we kind of imply that it's up to young people to save the planet. We can't do that as individuals. What we can do is take small actions, take small steps, have hope and kindness and agency, and then things might start to happen. So I'm keen to hear about how young people are being involved and how agencies within Essex are doing that. That's the aim of this section of the meeting. And it is about appropriate support and appropriate actions, and not a kind of abrogation of responsibility by saying to people, it's up to all of you to get on with it, even though we messed it all up. So I think that's kind of probably fairly self-evident to everybody. So let me begin by asking Rich to talk about forest schools and the work that Essex Wildlife Trust is doing with them. We've got 10 minutes for each of you. I will have to stop you at the 10 just to make sure that we finish in time. So I hope that's okay. So Rich, over to you at 12:13.
Thanks, Jules. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Can you see the slides? Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what you've just said, Jules. There's a lot of research that sort of says that you should, indicates that you should focus on cultivating empathy in young people first of all, before you get anywhere near, burdening them with solving the big problems. So absolutely. Okay, I'll try and be as quick as I possibly can. I focused on kind of forest schools in general, but I will kind of talk a bit more about how it relates to young people, because forest school is a very broad discipline, and it actually focuses on, it can be any age group really. But I shall hopefully lift your spirits, because there's lots of excellent work that's going on in the county, more so than in other counties, I would suggest. And partly I'll talk and hopefully raise some awareness of what forest school actually is, because it's one of the strategies that's available to us for developing climate active citizens. But it is often misunderstood, and the term is often misused as well. So I'll say a bit about what forest schools are, a bit about the main benefits as we see them, and what the research says, what's happening in Essex, the impact of our work at the Trust in particular, and then I'll kind of talk about what sorts of developments in the future might have the most impact. It is going to be an incomplete picture. I'm only going to talk about what we do at Essex Wildlife Trust, but there is lots of provision that's available within that kind of broad church of outdoor education in the county, not least the work that the Wilderness Foundation do. So can you see my slides change? So what is forest school? So as I said, as a term, it's often used very loosely. It's often used to refer to outdoor learning or nature-based education, but it is in fact a very distinct subset of outdoor learning. So it has a specific pedagogy, so a philosophy of learning, and it has a very distinct set of professional standards associated with it. And it's actually quite heavily regulated, but you can define it by 6 core principles. So there's the nature principle that forest school must take place in a woodland or a naturally wooded environment. There's the leadership principle. So forest school should really be run by qualified practitioners who maintain their continuous development of their practice. There's a long-term principle. So forest school is not a one-off. It's much more of a process and requires regular sessions. So it's best to think of it as an ethos. That's how I think of it, rather than as a single event or a series of events. Probably the most interesting or exciting of the principles is the risk principle. So forest school should really give you the opportunity to take supported and appropriate risks. And actually that we often observe in particularly working with preschool children, that they very quickly develop the ability to self-manage risk rather than exhibiting sort of risky behaviours, particularly when they're doing things like climbing trees, lighting fires, foraging, all of those kind of things that many of us absolutely loved doing when we were younger, and the things that actually connected us to nature at a young age. There's the holistic principle. So forest school should really support the full range of developments. So resilience, confidence, independence, creativity, all of those good things. And finally, there's a community principle. So forest school should really help to create a community for development and learning and help to build social capital. So there are many benefits to forest school and any form of kind of structured outdoor learning. And there are many benefits that kind of fall outside of the ones that you would perhaps expect. You would expect it to have a positive impact on environmental stewardship. You'd expect it to have an impact on environmental literacy, environmental behaviours, and those sorts of things. But actually, it has lots of very general benefits which are really notable. So it's excellent for boosting confidence. It promotes physical, psychological, and emotional resilience. It helps to develop communication skills. So perhaps surprisingly, this is particularly the case for language acquisition and language development. So when we were a short time ago, we were running a full-time outdoor nursery for preschool children at our head office at Abbots Hall, and we were inspected by Ofsted, and we got an outstanding Ofsted inspection, which was fantastic. But one of the key findings for Ofsted was that they were struck by how much our children had literacy levels that far exceeded the levels that were expected for their age. So it's much broader than just those kind of very physical skills or the the ecological environmental skills that you would expect. Really good for problem solving skills, fantastic for independence and creativity. It develops the whole person, so not just kind of not just the person in relation to nature and climate, but it has a sort of multi-dimensional and multidisciplinary set of benefits as well. And perhaps most excitingly, it offers unmatched levels of freedom. It's a very different type of education to indoor education. I think I've gone one too far there, sorry. It's difficult to quantify the scale of forest school activity in Essex because there's no central register. But we deliver forest school at 11 of our nature discovery centres, which cover almost all of the districts in Essex. We also deliver at several of our larger nature reserves, and there are, as I said, lots of other providers in Essex too. We're not the only one, but we do have a very long established forest school training programme where we essentially train the trainers at level 2, level 3, and even sometimes at level 4. And our trainees tend to be teachers from primary and secondary schools. So we have in Essex a network of alumni forest school trainers who are operating in Essex schools, which which is great. And this is where the real impact is for us, really, because if you train one person over the course of their career, they might then go on to train hundreds of others. So so that's a kind of key part of what we do, is train the trainer. And actually we do lots of large scale projects as well, where we go and deliver forest school training in a particular area. So Ian will be pleased to know that in 2021 to 2023, we did a project in the Tendring districts where we trained teachers in 20 schools, and they became qualified forest school practitioners. So we've done that in a few different parts of the county. I mentioned that forest school is a subset of a much larger discipline of outdoor education. And if we take this broader view in Essex, there is so much going on, even just within the realms of what we do at Essex Wildlife Trust. We do lots of school visits. We do lots of that's schools visiting our sites, and that's us going to schools to visit their sites. We do lots of what we call greening the school grounds. So essentially, we try to create wild spaces at their school sites. We do holiday clubs and weekend events. We do toddler groups, home education groups, sessions for guides and scouts and other uniformed groups. And we do what we class as every age and stage of life. In terms of impact, last year in 2023, we worked with almost 41,000 individuals, and we're likely to reach a similar number this year. And of those, 91% pledged to take some form of action for nature and climate. So really significant stats. But what does this kind of mean in terms of the county? So hopefully you'll be able to read this, but I will send around the slides that Louise can circulate afterwards. But I will highlight some parts of this particular slide. So hopefully everybody's aware that we have a county target of trying to get 1 in 4 people in Essex taking action for nature and climate by 2030. This is one of the main people-focused targets that the Essex Local Nature Partnership has set. And 1 in 4 sounds like an awful lot. So I wanted to translate Forest School and the general sort of outdoor learning work that we're doing into delivery towards this particular target. So if you look at on the left-hand side of this slide, we have a sort of a 4-stage strategy, which we use to take people on a journey so that they get to the point of taking action. And it involves firstly widening access, then trying to give people great wildlife experiences. Thirdly, adopting strategies in our delivery that are proven to deepen nature connection. And then lastly, encouraging some form of action. So that comes later in the process. And wherever possible, we try to actively survey and monitor participants so that we can see where they are on this particular journey. So I'll share these more specific stats with you. So if there are about, I mean, I've put 1.8 million, over 1.8 million people in Greater Essex, and we need to get to a quarter of that, which is about 460,000. We want in that number of people to take action for nature and climate. Then outdoor learning is one of the best strategies that we have available to us. So over 40,000, as I've said, over 40,000 people accessed our forest school and outdoor education last year. If you track that upwards, then you get to the top of the pyramid, and over 37,000 people pledged to take action for nature and climate in 2030. In 2023, sorry. So purely Essex Wildlife Trust provision, and purely in 2023, we made an 8% contribution to our collective target for Essex. So hopefully this is very reassuring to you. I think it's a significant volume of activity that we're doing.
Can you just summarise now, Rich?
Of course, yeah. So this is not, however, the outdoor education revolution that we really need. This is still what I would call sort of additive. Whereas what we really do need in Essex is ecological change in education, ecological in all senses of the word. So we need schools in Essex to take much of their learning outside as possible. We need better funding, better access, better clothing and equipment, rather than kind of trying to work hard on the margins, really. And there's an example of the GCSE natural history, which we've campaigned quite hard on over the past few years. It's a fantastic thing that students will be able to do it next year, but it is kind of a marginal gain, really. Because only some schools will offer it, and only some schools will, only some students at those schools will be able to take it. So we really do need kind of nature-inspired national curriculum, which places as much emphasis on environmental stewardship as it does on citizenship. Citizenship is vitally important to education, but there's no human society, there's no human economy without a healthy planet. I said that this talk would be uplifting though, so I'll take a step back from that in the absence of having that sort of systemic structural change that we need. Essex, much the same tone as the rest of the presentations today. Essex really is a county to be proud of in terms of outdoor education. There's lots of wonderful organisations and individuals that are doing lots of great things, not just in terms of Forest School, but nature-based learning in general. And I think we're very confident of hitting our county targets as well. So that's me done, I think. Happy to answer any questions now or in a few minutes' time.
Thank you, Rich. That's brilliant. I think what we're going to do is have all 4 presentations so that people feel as though they've had the chance to have their time and pick up any specifics at the end. Really helpful presentation and slides. Thank you. Louise, we'll get those sent around with others after the meeting, won't we?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Rich. That's great. Good. All right. So Prajwal, let's come to you. Sorry again that you've waited for a long time. So you're going to give us an update on the Essex Schools Climate Action Network, which you as a commissioner have been closely involved in helping to set up and run. So Prajwal, over to you as well. I hope 10 minutes is going to be fine for this.
Yeah, sure. I don't expect to use all of my time anyway. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who may not know, my name's Prajwal. You can call me Praj if you like. I'm one of 2 young co-chairs of this commission. I was approached 4 and a bit years ago to represent the interests of young people on the commission. So in that capacity, in, I believe, November 2022, I came up with a proposal to the commission, which was to establish a network of young people across Essex, in schools across Essex, to collaborate for the purposes of climate action. I believe I have some slides to present.
Are you okay to share them, Praj?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I can. Sorry, just give me a moment, please. Can everyone see that?
Oh, gone. We could see it, but it's gone again, Praj.
No reason. I can explain this. Okay.
Oh,
so,
just explain then, and we'll get them sent.
Yeah, sure. Just
do it by words.
Yeah. So to give a quick recap of the conception of the network, essentially it's built off of the premise that young people are very keen to engage in climate action. In schools across Essex, we can see eco schools clubs. Oh, there it is. Thank you, Louise. So just on the second slide, if possible, please. Thank you.
Okay. Can you see that?
It's not on display mode again, Louise, but if you just...
Okay, I'm going to leave it. I'm sorry. Just keep... Let's pop it on. See if we can pop it back on reading view. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, so in schools across Essex, you'll find eco clubs, which are led by a group of passionate students. Very often that leads to very successful projects. However, at the same time, many young people lack the cohesive knowledge and resources to effectuate change. In certain schools, for example, there is a particular teacher which leads these initiatives. However, a teacher which takes on this role isn't present in all schools across Essex. So therefore, the rationale is by creating a network of young people, we'll be able to engage and increase engagement in climate action amongst young people. So for example, say, I remember reading about a project in Colchester County High School for Girls, where a second-hand school uniform shop managed to save £14,000 over the course of a year by recycling the same second-hand uniform. So if, for example, this school were to go to the network and present their project to various other schools across Essex, then perhaps these other students in these schools would take inspiration and then implement similar projects in their own respective communities. So this was the rationale. To quickly touch on the research behind the network, just on the next slide, please. So we collaborated with Design Council in their Design Differently program, and we came up with, our results showed the following themes as the most important to young people. And clearly, we can see that by establishing a network, we would enable them to act, to be more proactive in these areas. So for example, in restoring nature, we can imagine how community tree planting events could potentially be something which the network could resort to. And additionally, in our online workshop results, we found the following results. I won't read them out, but you can see them there, regarding the nature of the network. So this leads us to now, just on the next slide, please, where we have a launch event arranged for the network, which will be occurring on the 16th of September from 4:30 to 6 p.m. virtually. We are incredibly lucky to have Lord Goldsmith, a former Minister for International Environment, having held various positions, similar positions in the past, and also Amanda Bronkhurst, who's the founder of Just One Tree, as guest speakers. We hope that this will increase engagement in the initial stages, and also allow young people to feel as though their voices are being heard. And yeah, we are incredibly lucky to have them. So of course, it's a great opportunity to discuss various themes which are brought up not only by these guest speakers, but by students themselves regarding, for example, what action they currently take in their schools and homes regarding climate action, and just to generally foster a sense of foster discussion on this topic. Following this meeting, we have plans to meet soon after in October before the school half term. And we also plan to potentially create a newsletter to send out to the network to create regular communication with all of our attendees. So that's where we are at the moment. In terms of registrations, we've received 36 registrations from schools across Essex. We expect this number to increase in the next few days. One obstacle we faced is very often teachers will sign up from and represent their school, but what we are going to do is we're going to ask these teachers to circulate the registration link within their schools to pupils directly, so as to increase the youth engagement of the launch event. But that's where we stand at the moment. And since this is a youth-led initiative, there is a lot of potential regarding what this network could be. At the end of the day, we intend young people to decide how they want the nature of the network to be, and we will simply provide them with the resources and platform for them to realize that. But thank you very much for all of your time, and I'm open to any questions, suggestions in the future.
Fabulous. Thanks very much, Prajwal. This is great. Good work. To have the idea in the first place, to pitch it, to put it in place, and to have it ready to expand in the ambitious way that you've set out there. Brilliant. Really good. So thank you very much for that. If you don't mind, we will continue with the other presentations and see if there are if there's time for questions at the end. But again, we'll add those slides to the pack so that people can follow up directly to you. And we'll come back. We'll need you to give us updates in future as well with this, because it is, as we were hearing from Rich, this is fundamental to the attitudes, behaviors, opportunities that people will take when they are leaving school and college, and in families and communities and the workplace. This will be really important foundational work. So thank you for that. Brilliant. Really interesting. So we will turn to Jane. So Jane Coxsage, owner and manager of Jane's Nursery Limited, is going to be talking about the under fives again. So Jane, are you all set to go with this? And Do you mind again trying to do this within the 10 minutes, if you don't mind? It's lined up, so. So is Jane with us? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Hi,
good.
Jane. Let me see if I can get you off mute.
You've been trying to speak, have you?
Okay, can you hear me now?
We've got you
Yes.
now. Hooray.
Great.
Sorry
Right,
about that.
okay, lovely, thank you. So I just
Right,
wanted
over
to
to you.
share with you the work we've been doing in the nursery over the last few years. We've been very interested in being sustainable, and we've made a lot of savings, but it's also about educating the children so that they grow up to be better citizens. So if you'd like to just move the slides on, I'll try and get through them quite quickly. So about 6 years ago, we gave up plastic milk bottles and went with glass bottles. We are saving plastic bottles. Let's have a look. We've so far in the 3 years, we've saved 2,295 plastic bottles. The next slide. We took the children to the refill shop. We have our soap delivered to us in a big containers, and the children take our soap bottles to the pumping one, and they fill up our soap bottles. And some of our parents now bring their soap bottles when they pick up the children, and the children are filling up their bottles for home as well. So they love doing that. So they're understanding where we need to make savings. We've done the Plastic versus Sewage Awards 3 times now, and the children are learning where we needed to save plastic, and they came up with the idea. Soap bottles, we threw a lot of them away, so they now do the refill. Our really big push is changing from disposable nappies to cloth nappies. We made this change 3 years ago, and we have saved 47,988 nappies going into landfill. So that's been a lot of work, but a very worthwhile thing to do. And I would never change back to disposables now. And a lot of our parents have changed to cloth nappies as well. We've bought enough of these nappies, or we've been given them by parents, and we give them one to take home. So they bring their children in one, so that we just don't have any disposable nappies going into our black bins here at the nursery at all. So we cut our waste down a lot there. Because of that change, we also got rid of wet wipes as well. We cut up old towels into little squares, use those dipped in water instead of wet wipes. We've saved 145,960 wet wipes going into landfill in the last 3 years. And also the little bag you can see in the slide, we buy each of our parents one of these bags to clip on their children's little rucksacks. So we saved buying nappy sacks, and in the 3 years we've saved 24,327 nappy sacks going into landfill. And also plastic gloves, we've saved 48,600 plastic gloves going into landfill just in 3 years. So we're really proud of what we've achieved there. But this is about the children's education as well. So if you could move the slide on, there's just a few pictures showing you what we do with the children. Plus this one, sorry, we've got rid of paper towels. Everybody has a proper little towel. These are little small ones just for the children to wipe their hands, but the adults have them as well. We have them in our bathroom, upstairs, downstairs, outside in the garden. So we got rid of all our paper towels and the machines that we had with them as well. We've saved a huge amount. Paper towels. We've saved probably about 300 boxes of paper towels, like boxes full coming in each year. So a saving of 780,000 paper towels we've saved as well. Next slide. So we upcycle everything. Cereal boxes we cut up for shopping lists. We cut up for the children to draw on to save us keep buying paper. Everything goes to our junk model station so the children can make models to take home. Move the slide on, please. We have recycle bins everywhere, inside, outside, everywhere. The children understand now about where the plastic goes, paper and card goes. And we have our own little recycle centre outside in the nursery garden, and the children every Thursday come out with all their bins and they know exactly how to recycle. So that's really great as well. Next slide. This is just in our baby room. This is just a typical little thing they'd set up for the little babies to come into. So they're using all the recycled material even for them to feel and explore, which is really nice. So we start all our recycling with our children from our baby room right up to when they leave and go to school. We go litter picking with our children, so they understand about how we need to keep the environment clean. So they've all got litter pickers, and we invite the parents to come sometimes with us as well. The little girl in the pink coat here, she had her hands full of recycling, but she saw a crisp packet right deep under the bush, and Army crawled under there with a litter picker in her arm, but she got her crisp packet and brought the whole lot out with her, which was lovely. And now the parents tell us that they've been out at the weekends litter picking with the children because they're asking to go, which is really nice. So it's spreading what we're doing. Next slide. So we have an allotment. These little children looking at the daffodils are actually the allotment over the road from us in Broomfield. So we teach them a lot of work about bugs and birds and bees. And these little girls looking at the little bug on the daffodil. And the picture to the left is I built the children like a little rainforest, like an Amazon rainforest, and put all the animals in. And we were teaching them how the animals need the rainforest to live in, and we don't want to keep cutting trees down to make paper. So they now have days where they draw on little mini blackboards or whiteboards or cardboard. We've actually narrowed it right down. We only give them paper probably once a week now to draw on. And they understand they have to use the other side of it as well. So they're being really careful with their paper usage. Next slide. So we also built a little underwater scene. So we knew the children were learning about recycling, but we weren't sure if they really understood why they were doing it. So hence we wanted to teach them about caring for trees and looking after the underwater and not having our rubbish going into the sea as well. And they've thoroughly enjoyed that. So that's been very good, knowledge for them to pick up and learn. Next slide. They've been to the charity shop down the road. They go down there. We buy things from the charity shop as well, so that they know that you don't just keep going out and buying new things. We also run little things like farm shops for our parents. Oh, sorry, this one is in the woods. We do have a couple of forest days a week as well, and the children go down there and they learn a lot about nature and trees and birds. The children are learning the sounds of the birds flying over, their songs. Without even seeing the bird, they can tell their parents what's a blackbird and what's a magpie, because they've learned things like that from my husband, because he was brought up to learn about nature. And the elderly gentleman in the picture is our volunteer, and he teaches the children to make toys out of branches that are just laying on the floor. So that's really lovely as well. Next slide. This is Peter again in our little workshop. At the nursery, we call it the repair shop, like the programme on the telly. And Peter listens to the things that the children are really interested in, whether it be a train or an aeroplane, and he'll come to the nursery with all the little shapes pre-cut out, with all rounded edges, pre-drilled holes, and he'll help them build wooden toys that they take home. So that's really lovely. This little boy on the right's got a little aircraft there that he's made. Next slide. We also have a lady that brings her sewing machine in and out of old curtains and scraps of all sorts of stuff. They make little outfits and things that they go home in. So they're learning how to mend and make do using old materials and things that are donated to us. Next slide. This is in our allotment. This is one of our little babies out the baby room. Even got took to the allotment when they were going over to dig up potatoes. She's just scrapping around, finding little potatoes, which was really lovely. So we teach our children about the seeds and how things grow, so from seed to plate. And they'll go, and they're in the process now of going over and bringing back marrows and potatoes, and then they wash and chop them all up, and we make stews and things here, and they cook for all the children in the nursery. so that they're really learning how to grow their own food. Next slide. This is them picking the beetroots here, and the picture on the left of them chopping up the food. That's what they're doing. But they're caring for it all the time. They're going over there, watering and weeding and planting. They learn the whole process, which is really nice. Next slide. This is a little jumble sale that we had where the parents donated the clothes their children had grown out of, and then we invite all the parents in and they come and they buy clothes ready for the next size up for their children. And the children at the nursery just love to play shops, and they're just charging like a penny or tuppence for an item. And then our children have their own little money box, and then if they say that there's something they want to buy, we'll take them on the bus to the shops and they choose what they want to buy, which is really nice. So they're learning how to reuse things. Next slide. This is the farm shop we've done. And
just one minute, Jane. Yeah.
1 minute. This is a little farm shop. This is just to encourage the parents to come and buy, because we buy from a fruit and veg local farm shop, and this is to save them going to the supermarket and buying everything in plastic bags. Next slide. This is the cloth nappies. This is the babies. Next slide. Or is that it? Is that the end?
That's the last one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the last one. Yeah. So yes, that's us. So we are teaching the children all the time. Their education here is all about sustainability, being eco-friendly, and they learn so much. And they go home and talk to their parents. They learn about electricity and water and how to save it. They're telling their parents not to have the tap running all the time. They're cleaning their teeth. They get into trouble at home, and yeah, we're doing a real lot of work and making huge savings as well, which is brilliant.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay,
very lovely. Thank you, Jane. That's fantastic.
Right.
We're coming to you. You've waited a lot longer. That was super lovely. Loved the picture of the cloth nappies at the end, but also really good that you're collecting the data. The 47,900 nappies saved in 3 years. This is really important part of the storytelling, is kind of having that data to talk about. You just mentioned in passing that you are in Broomfield, so on the northern side of Chelmsford, but I can imagine a lot of people will be talking about what you've presented there. It just shows that a comprehensive approach is really effective. So 3 cheers and bravo for all of that work, and I can see lots of smiles on everybody's faces. So we're going to move to the end. And Marina, you've had to wait the longest. Thank you. Sorry for that. But I'm sure it'll be wonderful. You're going to be talking about the Manifesto for Essex, creating a platform for young people. So over to you. For everybody else, we are going to run up against the end of the meeting. So I've just allowed us to have full time for each of these presentations rather than have time for questions and discussion at the end. But I think it's worth it. I know you might feel as though you've been talked at a bit for the whole meeting, but I've been really inspired by all of these presentations. So no pressure on you, Marina. Over to you to finish off for us. Thanks a lot.
Everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Marina Cusi. I am a Catalan theatre maker, artist, and activist. And today I am based in Essex, by the way. And today I'm here presenting Manifesto for Essex on behalf of the Essex Book Festival. So Manifesto for Essex is a creative platform for young people living in Essex and beyond to express their thoughts and ideas about tackling climate change. A Manifesto for Essex began at Essex Book Festival back in 2020 in response to our festival director, Ross Green, who asked herself the question, what is the most pressing issue of the day and who will be the most affected by it? So that year, Manifesto for Essex became a multi-form creative platform for young people living in Essex and beyond to express their ideas. And after multiple events on and offline, the Manifesto for Essex zine was created by Lou Williams as a statement of intentions to do better for our environment as individuals, to keep asking important questions, to harness Essex rebellious spirit, and to capture the energy of our Essex youth, while doing such an important work to raise awareness of the environmental crisis. So these are some of the events that Manifesto for Essex has held in the past to engage young people in Essex and beyond. our Youth Climate Summit at First Sight as part of the EA Sustain Festival with special guests and former leader of the Green Party, Caroline Lucas, who took part in our opening panel discussion. We also hosted a series of oak gold ink making workshops, which were led by Thurrock-based artist Selena Chandler, and using oak gold gathered from 25 destinations across Essex. And we did some eco-printing workshops by using recycled corks and paper as part of the launch event that we had at Essex Book Festival, held at the University of Essex this past 1st of June. We also commissioned Colchester-based Signals to devise a program of game changer environmental coding workshops, which were launched at our Youth Climate Summit, which took place at the Cresting Temple Barns, at the University of Essex and at RH Art Centre. We mentored second-year students at Harlow College for their All Change photography exhibition, which was displayed at Harlow Library as part of this year's Essex Book Festival. We also hosted a series of family nature workshops as part of our Midsummer Madness Family Day at Cresting Temple Barns this past June. We hosted a Litty's Criminal Beach Family Workshop on Dovercourt Beach as part of our Criminally Good Day. We supported a series of family printmaking classes inspired by our theme, This Land, at Colchester Makerspace. And then we had students aged 13 to 16 participating in our new Writing and Talking Natural Saturday Club based at Anglia Ruskin University, creating a new nature-based zine, which was entitled This Land, plus a series of eco-podcasts supported by Chams for Community Radio, both of which were displayed at Somerset House as part of its National Summer Show. And then we also have a Manifesto for Essex panel discussion at the new Essex Podcasting Festival, chaired by myself, which is still to come, and that will be celebrated on the 28th of September this month. So if you wanna just see what else we have coming up, Manifesto for Essex has a website, manifestoforessex.co.uk, or you can get there through Googling Essex Book Festival. So this is my presentation. Thank you so much for inviting me. Unfortunately, I have to run and catch a train. Well done, everyone, for their presentation, and thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you, Marina. Sorry, we've kept you waiting and you might miss your train. That's brilliant. Really good work. Essex Book Festival is one of the country's leading county book festivals, and so this is fantastic that it's come out of that work with engagement with young people. Do sign off and run, Marina. We appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, thank you, everybody. Let's wrap up, and let me just say one thing, because I've just taken that from what Jane was just saying at the beginning of her talk, that working with young people, especially in your example, Jane, very young people, is that you work with young people and they transfer the ideas, the norms, the suggestions to their parents and their families. So we're getting this kind of knock-on effect, and I'm sure that's the case in the forest schools, Rich, and in outdoor education, and I'm sure that's the case in what Pradwell's working on for the Essex Schools Climate Action Network. So there is a kind of theory of change here, which is if we successfully work with young people and don't create anxiety and stress and just make it fun and interesting, that we'll see changes within across generations and within families. A personal observation I have seen in a number of examples, especially talking to kind of mid-teens and sometimes late teens and sometimes students at the university, where families have been completely cracked apart, broken apart by differing views on, particularly on climate. And it's not necessarily parent-child, it might be uncle or grandparent or somebody who has particular views, and the family just no longer has the language to stay stuck together when people have strong views. And it strikes me it's an open question for us to mull upon. Strikes me that this action and work with young people is not just with young people, it's with whole families, it's with whole communities. And that is going to be part of the theory of change that works our way through the whole of Essex, and perhaps avoids some of those really, really kind of hard and difficult outcomes when people's views fracture families, particularly when they're usually around climate rather than nature, to be honest, because that's the one that's more politicized. So thank you for that, Jane. Thank you very much indeed, Rich, as well, Prajwal, and also Marina, who's now running for the train. Thank you, everybody, for the rest of the presentations. The SIG leads, fantastic, really, really interesting. It's been quite a lot of talking from presenters, but I think there's a richness of the material there that is helpful to us all. Louise will send round slide packs so that we can all have a look at those in our own time. I just wanted to thank well, Marina for coming in as well, Rich as a commissioner anyway, who would have been here, but to make the presentation, same with Prajwal, but also Jane, thank you for the great work in Broomfield. I think you might have a queue of people outside your door wanting to come and see what's happening in Broomfield. Really, you know, more power to you all. That was just great. That's uplifting stuff. So, and it all was. So thank you very much, everybody. Let's sign off there. Thank you. And if you wanted to raise questions and take observations further forward, I'm sorry that we've run out of time, but I think you probably saw that kind of happening as we worked our way through the meeting. I've just made a call to suggest that it's better to have that richness of information today. I've got pages of notes down here and I've thought it was fabulous. So thank you, everybody. Till next time, and good luck, go well, keep up the good work, everybody, and we will meet again. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.